Oi, agora foi. Olá, bom dia a todas as pessoas presentes aqui, quem está acompanhando a gente pelo YouTube. Bom dia, muito obrigado pela presença e hoje nós vamos começar então o segundo dia. Alguns avisos importantes. Hoje o sistema de tradução vai estar apenas do inglês para o português, então se alguém tiver alguma pergunta, pode fazer em português, qualquer coisa, Thiago, Fernanda também nos ajuda, o Anthony também se prontificou a ajudar na... Oi, pronto. Lembrando, assinar a lista de chamada, que está o QR Code ali na frente, beleza? Não esqueçam disso. E hoje à tarde, às 2h, a gente vai ter a reunião aberta, né? Então vai ter onde os professores de Michigan vão estar apresentando um pouco o que eles fazem lá, um pouco as questões de internacionalização nossa, vai ser um momento muito importante, então contamos com todos aqui. Alguns grupos vieram falar a participação da reunião das atividades. Quem terminar de almoçar antes, 13h30 vai estar aberta aqui o auditório, ou a sala secundária pode se reunir antes também, beleza? Então, sem mais delongas, gostaria de convidar o professor Thiago para dar a continuação. Gostaria só de invite Professor Benjamin for go ahead, Kay, thank you for present in Belém. For us, it's a great pleasure. Now, Professor Thiago can continue for introduce the Professor Dimitrios. Thank you so much.
Oi. Hey, I'm going to present in Portuguese for them, but yes. É um prazer bem grande apresentar aqui hoje o Dimitrios Gounaridis. Ele é pesquisador e professor, assim como eu, lá na Escola de Sustentabilidade. E ele vai se apresentar e explicar toda a formação dele agora, mas ele vai falar, ele é especialista em análise geoespacial, então ele é muito legal. Se vocês quiserem conversar um para um, tirar dúvida da tese, façam aquela reunião com ele, que vai valer bastante a pena se tiver qualquer dúvida, tá bom? Thank you so much, Dimitrios. Go ahead.
Bom dia. Bom dia. Thanks a lot for the introduction. Thanks for making this happen. I'm really excited to be here. And today I'm going to talk about geospatial data science for ecology. How we use remote sensing, how we use machine learning, cloud computing, and we are going to link everything we say in the lecture part to the lab, to the hands-on demonstration later in the day. So, a little bit about me. I have a PhD in geography. I have made some studies in forestry and natural resources management, and a master's in applied geoinformatics. Actually, for my master's, I did forest fires and modeling and simulation modeling of forest fires with remote sensing. And for my PhD, I did land cover changes and simulation models and some economic aspects and how we can use different variables in simulation modeling. And then after that, I went to Michigan, and I'm still there, almost 8 years now. With Ben, we were fellow postdocs, sitting right next to each other, right? And now I'm a research faculty. I'm an assistant research scientist at SEAS, at the School for Environment and Sustainability. And my journey started from here. This is where I did my PhD studies and my master's in Greece, on an island right next to Turkey. It's called Lesbos Island, and the university is called the University of the Aegean. It's in a nice little town. It's called Mytilene, right next to Turkey. It's like one hour by boat to go to Turkey. And I was telling people that this university reminds me a lot of my place where I did my PhD. It's very, very similar. So that's the view from the university, right? It's right in a prime location, real estate location, in an old building here, and right next to the sea, okay? And that's, where is it? That's the view from my office, okay? So it's very, very similar to what you have here with a river. And then at Michigan, I work at the intersection of these three topics. Mainly, I'm working on land use and how we use the land and what consequences our decisions have, and the spatial inequalities that come with it, and how this affects people and the environment. And of course, we have climate change, so things keep changing. So I'm just trying to use my tools to detect these changes, okay? And that's very relevant to what I'm gonna be showing you in the afternoon in the hands-on experience. We have one deforestation model, okay? So enough about me. I'm gonna see a little bit about you first, before I begin, because I have created a slide deck, a presentation that has 150 slides, and I'm trying to squeeze in everything I teach in a semester at Michigan. Okay, so I'm gonna know if you are familiar with the concept of remote sensing, if you are using remote sensing, or if you want me to start from the very basics. So let me see hands. How many of you have used remote sensing before? Okay, about, is it up or down? Okay, and what about machine learning? I know you have only a few people. Okay, so I'm gonna be descriptive. I have all the foundations of machine learning, basically what it is and how it works. That's what you need to know. And in the afternoon, you're gonna see 2 models, and I'm gonna give you the scripts that you can use with your own data for your own projects, okay? What about Google Earth Engine? A little bit? Dominic, okay. So these are the topics that I'm gonna cover. I'm gonna start with what is remote sensing and how we use it. How does it work? And some theory behind it that will help you understand why we are using this data set and that data set, and basically how they were created. And then I was thinking of having a 5-minute break after the first section, the first chapter, and then go on into how machine learning and remote sensing integrate together. And then the third hour is going to be about Google Earth Engine. Okay? Because in Google Earth Engine, you are using remote sensing products and machine learning. So let's begin with the very, very basics. Remote sensing is when you acquire information about a place without having to be there, from afar, okay? Remote sensing can be this, when you are taking a picture with your phone. It's exactly the same thing, exactly the same process. And also, there are some devices that are portable and people go on the ground. They're not producing any images, but they are measuring the spectral responses of materials and leaves and trees and everything. This is also remote sensing. And then we have drones that are taking pictures and they are measuring things for you, and they are creating data sets. And then we have what we call the aerial remote sensing with airplanes. that are designed specifically to carry a sensor and produce data sets for you. And of course, we have satellites, okay? So why we use remote sensing? Because we need data. Data, as they say, data is the new gold. When you have information and you have data, you need all this. From accountants, to governments, to banks, to commercial, everyone needs data, right? And for the environment and research and science. But in the old days, people used to go in the field and do field work to collect data, and this is expensive. This takes time. You need a lot of personnel to perform this task. But with remote sensing, you just sit in your office and you are using data that were collected from space or from the air for you. It doesn't, it just complements the field work. It doesn't replace field work. Tiago, is the translation okay so far? Okay. And there are hundreds and hundreds of applications that use remote sensing. It's a highly desired skill, right? Everyone wants to use it nowadays. And it's a rapidly evolving technology. Whatever we say today, in 5 years from now or 10 years from now, it's not going to be super accurate. There are going to be new stuff, new models, new data, right? And that's why I always start my lectures from the foundations. How is it working? So you can keep up easily with the new developments. If new models and new sensors appear, you will be able to understand and use those quite quickly. In fact, it started since the 100 years ago, almost 200, okay? It's not new. But after the space stations, after the 2010s, it's rapidly evolving. And there is a learning curve, but it can be rewarding, okay? So, a little bit of fun facts about remote sensing that are important so we can understand each other. Software doesn't matter. I know a lot of students, they are just focusing on one software and they are very reluctant to try something else, or they are overly attached to a specific software and specific naming and menu, okay? So software doesn't really matter. What it matters is the method that you are gonna use, and every software has exactly the same tools, okay? Some of these are very, very expensive, like the Erdas Imagine, the Idrisi, all of these are very expensive, and some of these are free. QGIS, GrassGIS, SagaGIS. And they have the same thing, the same functionality, okay? Just a heads up that software is not really important in the geospatial data science world. And it's not only about land cover changes. They use remote sensing for everything. Here I have an example from archaeology, for example. I have an example here from climate. And an example from precision agriculture. All of these are using remote sensing. Hydrology, okay? It's not only about land cover changes, urbanization, or deforestation. And there are thousands of satellites in orbit. It's not only Landsat. There are literally thousands, okay? for different purposes. Some of these are for communications, some of these are for military purposes, and some of these are for Earth observation. And it's an evolving field. As I was saying, as you can see here, I did a very quick search with only one keyword, remote sensing. Okay? It's going up. People are using it more and more. So, today we're going to be talking about Earth observation and satellite remote sensing. Okay? Only from satellites and only for Earth observation. Remote sensing is even the X-rays that that are for medical purposes. So you have to, because it's an umbrella term, it's a very wide term, you have to define it, that I'm using satellite remote sensing for Earth observation. Okay? I have a very short video. Is it okay if I play it? It's a very short video that will give you like the visuals of how the electromagnetic spectrum works. I think it's like a couple of minutes. No, they will have to play it here. It's not from here. This one is like decor. I can skip it. I can skip the video. When you open the PowerPoint, you need to give permission, but I will skip it. We don't need it. So, how does remote sensing work? That's the very, very basics, right? We have energy from the sun, or from a lamp, or from any light source. So we have energy coming into Earth, right? And then every molecule on the Earth, if it's grass, if it's cement, if it's anything on Earth, reacts to this energy. And it does two things. Absorbs the energy and reflects. Okay? Only two things. Remote sensing measures the reflectance, measures what the objects are reflecting. Okay? For example, this computer here is black, right? Because it receives light energy from the lamp, and it reflects a specific part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and it absorbs all the rest. It absorbs a lot, that's why it's black. This one is yellow because it reflects more. And high absorption means low reflectance. The objects appear darker colors or dark in general, and vice versa, the opposite. And the levels of reflectance and absorption depend on the wavelength, what kind of light is it, what kind of energy, and what kind of object or material it is. And we have the electromagnetic spectrum. This energy from the sun has all these wavelengths. With our own eyes, the humans can see only this tiny little fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum. That's what we see with our own eyes. But there are also other electromagnetic wavelengths that we cannot see. There is also the infrared, the microwave, radio, and from the other side we have the X-rays, the gamma rays. All these are important, and there are different applications and different purposes for this. For remote sensing, for Earth observation, satellite remote sensing, we are focusing only on this region here, as you will see later today, okay? We are focusing only on the visible, the infrared, and some sensors use the microwave. So I just want you to remember that we are using only this region, okay? You don't have to memorize, or you can just Google what kind of sensor I'm gonna be using, okay? And then it all comes down to this. As I told you, different materials, different objects, they react differently to the wavelength from the sun or from a lamp or wherever. So, for example, water. If you see water from a satellite, if you see a lake or a river from a satellite, it's always dark, right? And it's also blue, green, but always dark. So let me show you how to read this graph. This is the spectral curve. This is the reflectance identity of objects, right? The water in the visible is always low reflectance, which means it's always dark, and it reflects all three, the red, green, and blue, equally, with a little spike on the blue. And that's why water is always blue. In the near infrared and the infrared region of the spectrum, it absorbs everything. So it's always black. Clouds. If we see a picture of clouds, how do they look like? White. They are white, bright also, right? They are bright. And that's how we read this. They are in the visible spectrum. They are very high reflectance. That's why they are bright. And equally, the three visible parts of the spectrum create white. So that's how you're going to be reading this. Vegetation. You see a spike here on green. It means that it absorbs the red and blue and reflects the green. Okay? That's the basis of remote sensing, as you will see. And then, when you are downloading a remotely sensed image, a data set from Landsat, for example, you are getting different bands. Have you ever worked with different bands? So you are getting a lot of files, okay? Different bands, that's how they call it. And each band captures a specific part of the spectrum, okay? So scientists that created this satellite and this sensor and put it up on space, in orbit, they know already what we need. So they say, one band is the blue. We need it separate. One band is the green, and then the red. One band is the near infrared. Because we know that different elements on the Earth, they react differently. So if we're going to do studies that separate vegetation from clouds, we're going to need this band here, right? Or especially, let's say, water and vegetation. They look about the same in the visible. But when you go to the near infrared, to the other band, they look different. You can distinguish very easily. So the scientists know about this, and they have created bands on purpose, very carefully selected to capture different parts of the spectrum and to have this information separate, okay? How do we read a band? It's not about colors. We're not gonna use a color scale or anything. It's black and white, the grayscale color bar. That's how you are always getting the data. That's how you are always getting the data. There's nothing wrong with them. For example, the red and the blue and the green band, they are not red or green or blue. They're just capturing different parts of the spectrum. And how you read it? Vegetation is dark, means low reflectance. Built up, the urban areas is bright here, high reflectance. Whenever you see like something lighting up, it's high reflectance, okay? In this specific band. And then, what are these bands? And generally speaking, all the raster files. All the raster files are very large matrices, tables with numbers. So if you zoom in into a very tiny location, you are getting this, numbers. And these numbers are what? Reflectance, right? If you see a high a large number, it's high reflectance. Low number, low reflectance. Okay? That's how these bands are. All the raster files in GIS, they are tables with numbers. And as you know, as we already said, different sensors isolate and have different bands. And whatever sensor you are using for your project, in the future, you can just Google and say which bands they have. And what are the names of the bands? Where's the blue, the red, the green? Okay? Here, for example, I have an example. This is the natural color, right? The red, green, and blue combined together, they give you the natural color, the one that we can see with our own eyes. And we see this area here that it's dark. What happened there? Is it like a forest fire or a disease, a bug? What's going on there? Any guess? Nope. It's a wetland. And why I say this? It's a wetland because it has a lot of water, which means dark. And when I switch to the near infrared, it's even darker. And I know the curve of the water, that in the near infrared, it absorbs everything. It doesn't reflect anything. Okay? Just an example how you connect the spectral curve, the different bands, and why do we need those, and how you are reading something that you see. And if you know the spectral curves and the different bands, you know what to expect. Okay? Another example here. Someone gives me only the natural color from Google Earth. Just the natural color. That's only the things that we see with our own eyes, right? And we say, okay, these are agricultural fields. But when you change it to the near infrared, if you are using multispectral satellite, you see that these areas here, they have a lot of water, right? You cannot see those only in the visible part of the spectrum. And that's why we have all these bands, okay? And a model will be able to understand this. If you are creating a model to find water in this image, the model will understand because it is gonna see the numbers, okay? The models don't see the pictures, they only talk with numbers. Another example here, there's a river in the infrared part of the spectrum. It's dark, okay? Another example here, and it all comes back to this. Another thing I want you to remember is that every element on the Earth has its own spectral signature. Even different species of vegetation, because vegetation is too broad. It's also grass and, bushes and trees, and all these different species. Every species, every individual tree has its own spectral signature, okay? Here's the example. For example, here you see minerals, and they all look the same. They all look the same. It's like Jackson Pollock painting, right? But what I'm trying to say here is that every element has its own spectral signature. And a model, if you train it enough, is going to be able to distinguish between the minerals. With our own eyes, not a chance. If we only look at this, okay? Only if you are an expert in a specific mineral. And then we have all these spectral indices. Everyone is talking about NDVI and some other indices that are very similar to NDVI, and many people know about these indices and they have used it before. How many of you have used NDVI or have heard about it? Yes, quite a few. So, the spectral indices, like NDVI, they come from the spectral signatures and the spectral curves and the different bands. And scientists have known about this for decades now. And they are starting creating equations that will highlight the difference along the bands of a specific element. Let's say vegetation here. In the visible part of the spectrum, you don't see anything that is problematic here, okay? But if you see in the near infrared, you see that this area, something is going on. And why is unhealthy vegetation darker? Any guess? Less chlorophyll and higher absorption of the green part of the spectrum. A burn scar, right? And just to give you an idea why we have all these vegetation indices, this is how it looks like. Healthy vegetation is green, unhealthy vegetation is brown, darker. Lower reflectance, a little bit equal between blue and red and green. But if you go to the near infrared, they are so different. The healthy vegetation is bright, it reflects the near infrared, and the unhealthy vegetation is darker. And then if you go to another band, we call it the short wave infrared, again, they are different, reversed. So scientists know this, and they are creating equations, or as they call it, band ratios, to just highlight this difference that I just showed you. Okay? And what I want you to remember is that there are some indices that are very, very simple band ratios, band 5 divided by band 3, for example. And some of them are very, very long and sophisticated. Okay? Another thing I want you to remember is that all this spectral index philosophy is not new. This guy, Compton Tucker, he wrote this paper in late 70s, right? 50 years ago. And he published, that's the paper with the NDVI, many, many years ago, okay? So it's not new. Whenever you are using one of these indices, there is a lot of research behind it, and they know the spectral curves. This guy used to go to the field with a portable device before and after something, and he came up with a spectral curve and everything that we have been talking so far. And obviously people love it. It's useful. It just separates unhealthy or burned areas or urbanized areas with only one index, which is very, very easy to calculate, and we will calculate it in the afternoon. For example, NDVI is a proxy of vegetation health, okay? And the equation is very, very simple. If you subtract the red band from the near infrared, and then you divide by the sum of the two, you get the NDVI. We will calculate it in the afternoon. It's very, very easy and very, very useful. Okay? So basically, this guy said that if you are taking advantage of the differences in this region, you will get a layer that highlights healthy vegetation from unhealthy, or from no vegetation. Another thing I want you to remember is that there are hundreds of vegetation indices. Every other day there's a new paper with enhanced this and modified that. Just a heads up that you're going to be looking at so many vegetation indices in the literature if you go into this rabbit hole, okay? Where you can find them? You can find the equations obviously online, obviously in AI, whatever tool you are using, but there are also some old school databases. The index database, you can just Google it and go there and look. They have every known index there, and you can sort them, you can query the database by sensor. So I have this data set, I have Landsat. Give me all the indices that I can use with Landsat. Okay, because not all sensors have the same bands. Every sensor has different bands. Some sensors have only 4 bands, for example. And one index that you really like and it's very useful for your project might have the shortwave infrared, the 7th band. So you cannot use it. So you can query the database by sensor or by application. I want to do grasslands. Which indices are available? So something cool to check out. And you get all the descriptions of the index and a graphic to explain what parts of the spectrum it's using. Obviously, you are getting the equation, so you can go into your script in R or in Python and just type in this equation with your data, okay? So you are getting everything about it. Another one, awesome spectral indices, similar. That's on GitHub, if I remember correctly. Yes, GitHub. So I have the links here. I will share the presentation after I'm done, okay? I will share a PDF version, so you have all these links. You don't have to take notes. Again, here it explains everything about all these indices. You can just click on Landsat and see only the indices by Landsat, and filter this and filter that. Another one, spectral something. So there are so many databases of vegetation indices. And there are also some platforms that you can explore the index online. That's the Landsat Explorer. It's free to use. I don't think you even need an account. So you go there and you have all the Landsat bands globally, and you go there and play around with different vegetation indices. I don't think they allow you to download stuff from them, but you can explore the area of interest, and you don't have to download the imagery and calculate the index and, you know, go in the very, very traditional route. Here is, for example, a different index, and you can also build custom indices with this platform, but it's only for visualization. Here's another one, interactive vegetation change mapping, that you can use NDVI to different years, to different dates, and calculate the change and the index. Okay? Obviously, every software has its own tools to calculate indices, literally every software. And for the NDVI, because it's by far the most popular index, they might have a tool only for NDVI. So you just, from a drop-down menu, you give the bands, you give the data that you have, you click OK, and you have the index. Okay? QGIS, this is AirDAS. Depending on which software you're using, you will find it. And then, obviously, we have a Google Earth Engine. Google Earth Engine, you just write scripts. So you can calculate everything there. But there are also some global spectral index mapper, some repositories, some platforms inside the Google Earth Engine that you can use for vegetation indices as well. Okay? We will see later today, in about 2 hours, how to use Google Earth Engine for spectral indices or vegetation indices. And then we have the last part of the first section. What? No, not now. In the third part. The different sensors. We don't have only optical imagery. We don't have only sensors that are producing pictures, photographs. Oh, tiny video. How the satellites orbit the Earth and capture pictures. Okay? That's what they do. Sun synchronous, because they need the energy from the sun, the light from the sun, and it's sun synchronous, and they're just taking massive pictures of the Earth. 180 kilometers by 180. And they orbit the Earth continuously, non-stop, and every 16 days you have a new picture anywhere on Earth. That's how they do it, okay? They are designed to do this. That's the orbit. And every picture they take, you get 7 bands. That's how the sensor was designed, right? 7 separate bands in a zip folder on every location every 16 days. I just wanted you to see how it looks like from a satellite. And obviously we have Landsat, which is by far the most popular satellite. It's a 50-year-long archive. It has the longest archive. So if you have a project that you want to do change detection of the 90s, for example, or the 80s, it's only this guy here. You cannot use any other satellite because all the others are newer, younger. It's free. The USGS decided in the mid-90s to open the archive for free to the public. And it provides analysis-ready data, which means that you don't have to go and run corrections. Because with remote sensing, it used to be very, very tedious to work with remote sensing imagery. You had to go through radiometric corrections, atmospheric corrections, and geometric corrections. And this was a pain in the neck back in the days. Now they have this analysis-ready data that they are already corrected. You just download it, you calculate your NDVI, you do your change detection, you do whatever you have to do. And it has a spatial resolution, the pixel size, of 30 meters, which is quite high for many, many applications. For some other applications, it's not sufficient. And then we have the Sentinel, the European satellite. Sentinel is better than Landsat almost on every point. So it has a better temporal resolution, a better spatial resolution. It's also free, but it doesn't have thermal sensor and is way, way younger. So if you have a project that is after 2014, you can use Sentinel. It's better. Higher spatial spectral resolution is how many bands you have. Sentinel has 10. It has more, okay? Which means more spectral indices that you can calculate with Sentinel. And obviously the applications are very, very similar to Landsat. This one comes to 10-meter pixel size and 20. Some bands are 20 meters. So these are the medium resolution, Landsat and Sentinel, and they are free. Apart from this, we have what we call the high spatial resolution, which are commercial. They are very, very, very expensive. The archive begins in the late 90s. It's a newer technology, so you cannot have high spatial resolution in the 80s, right? It's very, very expensive, thousands of dollars to get just one scene. And it has a very low spectral resolution. It has only 4 bands. Any guess why they have only 4 bands while I'm drinking water? Why they didn't care about the shortwave infrared and all these other bands? Correct. But because it's very high resolution, they were made only for visualization, only to see things. They were not made for modeling and to do vegetation change. it's very small scale. It's a very small scale scene, only for a neighborhood or for a forest stand, for small areas that you can just visually see the change. Okay? And also another thing that many people forget, and sometimes I forget too, is that the files are much bigger. For a tiny place like the campus of the University of Belém, you might need 10 gigabytes. Why? Because the pixel is 1 meter resolution. Okay? And sometimes it's too high. You don't need that. If you don't have a project to, let's say, measure individual trees, you don't need that. So depending on your project and what you want to do, you need to select the right sensor. Here's a table with the medium resolution, the two that are free, that I just put it in this table to compare, right? And then there are a bunch of high spatial resolution commercial satellites that you can check out. Some terminology here before I move on. Spatial resolution is the pixel size. Then we have the spectral resolution, which is how many bands. Okay, depending on your model and what you want to do, you might want to pay attention to this metric. And then we have the temporal resolution, how often you can get a new image from your area of interest, and you have the length of archive, which is self-explanatory. It's very important. When you are designing a project, you need to find all this information before you make a purchase or buy something that you eventually don't need. Example. Here's a very high resolution image from the stadium of Michigan. Okay, the football stadium that they have there. Here is the stadium in Landsat, right? And somewhere in here is Ann Arbor with a MODIS. Have you ever heard of the MODIS satellite? The MODIS is free. Every pixel is 500 meters by 500 meters. And in one picture, you are getting the US and Mexico, the entire US and Mexico. So they are using MODIS for climatic studies, from atmospheric studies, or from vegetation trends. Only the trend. They're not going to do change detection of forest or a forest fire with MODIS. So that's the difference, okay? So these are the optical. Whatever is producing a picture that you can see is an optical satellite. Another optical satellite that I just want you to know that it exists is what we call the hyperspectral. Hyperspectral means that it has hundreds of bands. Hundreds. So they take the spectrum and they are designing the bands to be like 200 different bands. They are covering a tiny fraction of the spectrum, each band. Okay? Where do we use the hyperspectral? Definitely not for land cover change and deforestation. We don't need it. Obviously, it's very, very expensive. We use it only for cases when we need continuous spectral signatures. Precision agriculture, for example. If you have like a vineyard and there is a disease spreading around in the area, and that's when you need a continuous spectral signature. Okay? Because if you have only 7 bands, like a Landsat, you are getting this graph. If you want to see the tiny little fractions here between the bands, you are going to use hyperspectral. And some applications, just to give you an idea, because I see some people sometimes come to me and say, I'm going to use hyperspectral to do something basic, something like deforestation or something that you can do with a Landsat. So here's some applications only for hyperspectral. Airborne methane detection, hyperspectral fish inspection, or fruit quality, and stuff like that. When you need precision, spectral precision, then you can go and buy hyperspectral imagery. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense, right? And the data are very, very expensive, very heavy, and also very noisy. You have to correct them. You have to, your model will go crazy if you give it all this information, okay? Yes, expensive, noisy. Usually, these are airborne with the aeroplanes. So there's a mission, and you're assigned a specific. You are assigning a specific area of interest, and a company that runs hyperspectral sensors, they will just do it for you. They will create the project for you. Okay, so it's not for larger scale Earth observation, I would say. And then we have the thermal. Have you ever heard about the thermal imagery and what they do with this? Forest fires, inequalities, urban heat island. That's the thermal. The thermal produces this from the main image. It produces this. It's a separate sensor on Landsat. It's free, okay? Unless if you want high resolution thermal and you have to put a camera somewhere or a portable device that just measures the thermal fluctuation. But you can find the thermal imagery with a Landsat. It's a separate sensor, and you are getting one extra band that is the thermal. And there are many interesting applications for forest stress, biomass, obviously spatial inequalities and access to green spaces and all this stream of research. Okay? Public health, obviously, and disease spread and mosquitoes. They use a lot of thermal in these fields. And then we have the SAR. Have you ever heard about the SAR? It's the synthetic aperture radar. That's a different animal. This is not optical anymore, right? SAR doesn't produce optical images. So you cannot do your change detection using SAR. Your urbanization trends or deforestation or agriculture shifts, you cannot do this with SAR. SAR is producing this. This is the optical that you get from another sensor that is optical, and that's what you get from SAR. Okay? So you cannot use it for visual inspection and interpretation. For example, SAR penetrates clouds. SAR penetrates the soil, the topsoil. depending on the band you are using, it penetrates the canopy. And that's why it's not optical, okay? It has many interesting applications, but it measures only the structure of things, the height of things, and the spatial layout of things. For example, they are using SAR for earthquakes. In a very tiny area, something moved, something changed, subtle changes that you cannot even see with your naked eye. You can use SAR and some techniques that are called change detection only for SAR. It's called InSAR, to detect the changes, okay? But they are not optical. That's what I want you to keep. How am I doing on time? I should be done by 5 minutes from now. And then we have the LiDAR. Everyone have heard about LiDAR, right? LiDAR, again, it's not optical. It's an active sensor. You are just sending signal to a target, and you are measuring the response, the backscatter, as they call it, right? So you are measuring the distance to an object. And we use LiDAR only for small-scale applications. It's expensive, obviously. It's airborne. It's very, very heavy computationally because you are getting a shape file with points as a response and millions of points. So you need a good computer to process the LiDAR. And it's good only for the height of things and the 3D representation of things. Usually buildings or vegetation, trees. That's what they usually do with LiDAR. Precision agriculture, they are using LiDAR a lot to just see the change. And buildings all the time with LiDAR, and engineering and bridges and stuff like that, infrastructure, hydrology, but always 3D representation of the environment. And always small application. You cannot do like country level or city level LiDAR. It's too expensive and you don't need it. At least for now. As I told you, in 5 years from now or 10 years from now, they might have LiDAR globally. Geology. Any questions? I think I'm done with the first part. Yes. So here, as I told you, this is the part of the spectrum we are using in Earth observation. And we have the visible and infrared, which is the Landsat and the hyperspectral. The infrared is the thermal and the LiDAR. They operate here in this part of the region. And the microwave alone is the SAR. Okay? Any questions? Okay. 5? Yeah.
I have one question. If I remember well, you said that every species have your own specific signature, right? So I was thinking about how easy it is to get these specific signatures from species, for example, plants or animals, and we have, for example, databases with I don't know, like the species name and their specific signature. Do you have this?
They do have something like that, mostly for material. So if there's a spectral signature repository or a database of spectral signatures online. Otherwise, you need to find studies that did remote sensing or radiometric measurements of specific. Are you interested in vegetation or fauna?
It's just a question, like for both. I think it's nice because I was thinking about performing some, like use this data to, I don't know, see the species distribution or changes with a specific species, something like that.
Yes, yes. Another route to acquire the spectral signature of anything is to get a portable radiometer. That's what it's called. So you go there and you target your species or your plant or the material that you are interested in, and you get its spectral signature right there.
Okay.
Yes, I know this for sure because a friend of mine, I will just give you an example to understand how it works. A friend of mine is doing a project and they are using, they are calibrating a model that will take Landsat imagery that passes through every 16 days from a specific location, and he's calibrating a model to detect plastic. So plastic is very broad. It's different colors, different material, plastic in general. So what they did is that they created a large square exactly the same size as a Landsat pixel, 30 by 30 meters square, in the sea, inside the water, in the sea, and they threw plastic from different material, different, you know, from food, from drinks, whatever they could find there. And they want the Landsat to come through and see this pixel. So they will take this pixel and see the spectral signature, and then they will create a model to find other pixels within the scene, anywhere in the region, to find other plastic.
Very cool application.
That's how they do it. Yes, that's how they do it.
Thank you.
Questions?
Is a question about, you showed us here a lot of methods and sensors and different ways to use remote sensing. Regarding the different sciences we have, geological sciences, forestry, biological science, etc., is there any synthesis that summarized the best options for each one? For example, for geological science, for example, or for biological science, inside biological science, we have vegetation cover, species distribution, something like that. I was wondering about having some synthesis that could, guide us about choosing the best option.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's a good question. So basically you are asking about a literature review, a paper that was published that, yes, for many, many fields, there are papers that do this. For example, you can just use keywords and say biology and remote sensing or biology and Landsat, and you will find, and maybe also literature review as a keyword, and you will find it. And also you can use an LLM to find you papers. It needs to be careful a little bit because at first they are giving you non-existing papers, but after you follow up and you just yell at them, they will give it to you. Yeah, you can find it pretty much for every discipline, every field that is using remote sensing. I've seen a lot so far. Yeah, we can look into it.
More questions? No? Okay, thank Jim.
Let's take 5, and then we come back here for machine learning and remote sensing. Okay? Why didn't you ask? Why didn't you ask? How do you define a forest? Share. I'm ready, yes. Is everyone back? Huh? Okay. Okay. Now it's the better part. The first part was a little bit boring. I get it, right? But it's how it works and why we have all these bands. And now we will see what we are going to do with it, with all these bands and all this information. And everything comes together now because we have the integration of remote sensing and machine learning. Now we are starting making models to make sense, to just create secondary products and results from the imagery. And before I begin, I'm going to talk a little bit about the terminology, because many people just conflate a little bit the terms. It's very often I see people confusing the different terms that come with machine learning and remote sensing and AI and all these terms. Okay? So AI, artificial intelligence, is a very, very, very broad term. It's so broad that it doesn't mean much. It doesn't mean anything. Artificial intelligence. At the core of AI, we have machine learning. Machine learning is also a broad term, but it's basically what keeps AI running, okay? So machine learning is that my model, I'm creating a model that reads numbers, always numbers, reads data, and identifies patterns, similarities, and generally speaking, patterns within my data. And then from there, it learns those patterns and is able to project them into another data set or into the future or whatever. So it's all about numbers and patterns. That's the machine learning, and it's the core of AI, okay? And for me, it's a better term to use because it's more specific, especially nowadays that AI is everything. Machine learning is more precise and more accurate, okay? One family of machine learning models is the deep learning. It's one family of many different methods. One family of methods is the deep learning. It's a subset, as I say here, of machine learning. And it's based on the neural networks. It's one architecture of models, and it resembles how the neural networks of humans in our brains learn things. Okay, it's a metaphor. It has a similar architecture. And it's newer, the deep learning family of methods, they are newer. And there are always neural networks. And then we have the language models, the generative AI or the large language models. ChatGPT, Claude, you name it, all these are deep learning, but with language. And how they are using language, they are converting numbers to letters, and then letters to words, and words to phrases, and sentences, and paragraphs. And they are pre-trained. So it's a model that has read a lot of books and websites and whatever is around. And it identifies patterns again, because it's machine learning. Patterns, usually this word comes with this word, and this letter comes with this letter and creates this word. And that's how it works, okay? And produces more and answers your prompts, your texts. So AI is a very, very generic concept, but the most important part for me is the machine learning. That's the core of AI. And my main argument is that it's not new by any means. It just became popular 5 years ago because some websites, some companies, they just opened it to the public for people to use it. ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and all that. So artificial intelligence, as a broad term, is around since the 50s, right? But it's becoming way, way more popular, especially the deep learning, lately. For example, I have a paper here that was an editorial that was published in 1986, right? Editorial on machine learning. And the journal is also named machine learning. And they measure artificial intelligence in the mid-80s. So that's the point I'm trying to make, is that it's not new by any means. And here's how the neural networks look like. That's the deep learning family of methods, okay? They just have the same architecture. You give data, numbers always. They identify patterns with their own process, and they are giving you a result, a response to what you are asking, okay? These are the neural networks. And another very wide and very popular family of methods is what we call CART, classification and regression trees, right? Different family of method. Both of them are machine learning and AI and whatever you want to call them. One method I personally use for many years is random forest, and it belongs to the CART family of methods. So the random forest is creating trees of data, right? Depending on your predictors, it just goes around your predictors and identifies patterns again, and it will give you an answer depending on what you want to classify or estimate a number, a numerical version, a numeric version, using the regression model. Again, the random forest is not new. It was published, this paper by Leo Brayman, it was published in 2001, 25 years ago, okay? Again, not new. And that's why a lot of research has gone through this, and they still use it. It must be good. This guy published the random forest paper. It's widely, widely cited, right? And it keeps getting cited. People use it more and more. Why? Because we have more research, more researchers, more projects, and also it's more accessible. It's very easy to use. If it was early 2000s, you had to write code, you had to just understand how it is. Now everything is easy. And I will give you the script this afternoon. You have a question? No? So I'm going to give you the script, and you can just use it and run random forest. Okay? It's very accessible. And that's why more and more people use it. So, we have two options. When we have an image, and we have a project, and we have an area of interest, and we have a research question, we have a dilemma. We can either do this by hand. Let's say that our project is to find deforestation in Belém, in the city of Belém, around the city of Belém, deforestation, right, or urbanization. We have two options. We have the image. We can either go there and digitize and create polygons, Ben's favorite approach. We can create polygons, or we can do this and that manually. What are the pros and cons if we do it manually versus if we are just going to go and create a model? The manual approach is not a model estimate. It's going to be 100% accurate. You see forest there, you just draw a polygon, you see forest. You're using your brain, and our brain is by far the most trained model out there, right? You can immediately see a forest and understand it's forest versus something else. Why? Because we have seen it thousands and million times. So it's going to be 100% accurate. It's not going to be a model. It's not going to be an estimate, right? Because models always create estimates, not the reality. You don't need to train it. You don't need to parameterize it. And it's the only option when the modeling is too challenging. Okay? When it's too challenging and you're going to make a model and you're going to train it for a month to get 50% accuracy, sometimes it's the only option. Just go manual. Do it. You have a research question to answer, right? It's not a demonstration of skills. You have to move on with your project. And always you need high resolution. Remember the pictures that I showed you before of an arbor with Landsat and MODIS? You have to have high resolution in order your brain to understand immediately what it's looking at. So always high resolution, always small scale. You cannot do global or national level digitization. It's going to take forever. And it's time consuming and boring. I have done a lot of this stuff in my days. It's boring, time consuming, only for small scale, right? And then we have models and machine learning and all this. You can do larger scale, you can do global. You can train a model here and just let it run globally and find forests globally, urban areas, lakes. You get a sample and you train the model to recognize similar samples anywhere for you. There are so many methods, rapidly evolving. Remember the curve of the publications. You can use machine learning. There are tools to make it automated and make it easier for you, right? But it's data demanding. You need to have good inputs to go into the model in order to get a good result. It's called, in geography, it's called the GIGO effect. GIGO. Garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good data or you have clouds and you don't train the model carefully, the result is not going to be great. All these models are blank pages. If you don't have good inputs and good training, you're not going to get a good result. And another thing that you have to remember, whenever you are modeling anything, it's never going to be 100% accurate. Depending on your project and the precision and the task, it's going to range from 20% to 99%, but it's never going to be 100%, right? If you have an image that it has a forest and a lake, it's a very easy model. You can train it. You can say, here is the lake, here is the forest. You can click run, and you can get like 90% accurate, 99. But it's never going to be 100%. If we go through every pixel, some of this might be false, inaccurate. So that's something you win, something you lose. It's a pros and cons kind of dilemma. And can be challenging, sometimes requires a lot of training and a lot of calibration and train it again and again. I don't like the result. Keep going back, find the training samples that are causing trouble and eliminate them and stuff like that. So there's a lot of back and forth and calibration, as we call it. Okay? So, how does it work? You have all these bands. Remember, anywhere on Earth, any point of interest, area of interest, you just download these 7 bands. 6 here, because we don't use the thermal. 6. So all of these are important information for the model. And as I mentioned previously, all these images are just tables, large tables with numbers, reflectance. High number, high reflectance, low number, low reflectance. And you go there and you say, okay, you go to the visible part of the spectrum and you say, okay, here's the forest, and you are taking a lot of samples, hundreds, thousands, forest, 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 forest. You do the same for urban, for soil, for agriculture. You are just taking samples. You are creating points. And you say, here's this, and here's that. And then your model will start understanding the patterns of the reflectance. Remember the spectral curves that I showed you before? It's going to create a table with numbers, and it's going to say that, okay, forest in the red band is usually between this is the range of values of reflectance. In the green band, it's going to be between this and that. It's going to do this for all the bands, as many as you have, for forests, from the samples that you collected. Okay? Because remember, machine learning is only about patterns. You give the data, and it tries to find patterns. It's going to do the same for other land types, whatever your project is about. And then it's going to do this, right? That's exactly the spectral curve that we were looking before. It's going to do exactly this, but with a range this time, because you manually selected samples. And you might have some outliers and stuff like that. So it's going to do this. And from there, after it has the range, it can tell apart, it can distinguish between different land types. For example, you can see an overlap here, but it's going to look here and here and here. And every land type is going to have a unique pattern. Okay? And these are the different bands that we have, right? All these numbers in the wavelength, we have different bands. So we can have a snapshot of the same land type over the spectrum. Patterns. And then from there, it will take one pixel that it doesn't have training, it doesn't have samples, it will take one pixel and say, okay, in this band you are between this and that. In the next band you are between this and that. It's going to do this. And then it will say, okay, this pixel is probably a forest or a lake, water. That's how it works. It's very simple. Any questions so far? After you run your model, you just send 100 random points, and you go there and you say, okay, the model says that here is forest. Is it forest in real life? That's how you do it. But after you run it, and then always you go back and correct the model. It's never going to be perfect from the first run. That's the calibration phase. So you have to run the model, go to the result, find that something is not accurate, and go back and correct, and take more samples, and, you know, that's how you do it. For example, here, just a generic example. You have this image here. You go there and you take samples and you say, here is not forest, and here is forest. You take a few samples to predict thousands and thousands and millions of pixels, and you get something like this. So the model understands that this is forest, this is not forest anymore. And it's always numbers. That's from a real project that we had way back. Okay? Here, for example, we also have urban area, forest, and non-forest. We have 3 land types.
Not working. Yeah, it's not. I'm curious, this training data, how much points do you have to like, to train your data to see, okay, if I use 100 points in what I know is forest and 100 points what I know is not forest, is it enough for, I don't know,
I don't
how
have
we
an answer
decided
to
that?
I wish I had an answer to that. So, generally, there are only some rules that I can share. The more the better. The more samples, the better. The more accurate, the more confirmation your model is going to have for a decision. So the more the better. The more confident the model is going to be. But on the other hand, if you take like millions and millions of samples, your training is going to take forever, or your computer is going to crash. So you have to find the right, the sweet spot between accuracy and feasibility, right? You don't want to take like millions of samples. And I have 2 more rules. Depends also on the complexity of your project. If you are doing forest versus non-forest, 2 categories only, that's the easiest model. Easy. If you're going to do in one forest stand 5 different tree species, as we are doing in laser, it's going to take a different kind of effort, and expectation for accuracy is going to be lower, right? You are never going to do this accurately. And another rule is that the more points you take, the more noise you are also introducing. So quality of samples, you have to have very clear samples, clear. Quality is as important as quantity. So if you say that I'm going to take 1,000 more here, you're going to start introducing some noise. Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, a follow-up question for that. Do you have any kind of stats, like index, that is going to measure how good that thing is? I don't know.
We
You
have
a
all of that,
number
yeah.
of 0.85, you're good. If you don't have that number, we need to run and test more, add more samples.
Yeah, we have all of these diagnostics, all of that. We have all of that. Another rule that I just forgot to mention is that you have to have a relative balance of the samples. If I could take here like 99% samples on forests and only a few on the non-forest, it's going to be biased and, overfit the model and, distort the result. So balance, quality, quantity is good, but do not overdo it. Along those lines. But there is no answer to that. It depends also on the project, on the task. If it's too complicated and you are just doing like 20 land cover categories, good luck. Yeah, and the scale, if you are doing like phone booths in London, good luck, because there are red cars and red rooftops and everything. Depends also on the task. Example, how will we do this here? That's exactly what we are going to do in the afternoon, before 1984 and after. How can we use machine learning to do that for us? So we don't have to go and digitize every field and takes forever. I would take samples here and samples here to distinguish the two categories, forest and non-forest. I would classify this image first, 1984, and then with the same sample, I will go here. What happened? Oh, this thing stopped working. Yeah, do you have a spare? Or does it have a laser? No. Anyway, Egwa, do you have a charger? I will just charge it for 5 minutes and yeah, that's mine. But I forgot this one. You have an iPhone? I need a Type-C cable. Type-C, yeah, thanks. No, I don't think I need it. Yeah, I will have this as well in 5 minutes from now.
So this is the red one.
Yeah. It's a red one, but it's very tiny. So yeah, that's how I would do it. Forest, non-forest. Depending on the project and what you want to do, you always have to be parsimonious and not overcomplicated. If my project is good with only 2 categories, I'm not going to do 10 land cover types, because the more complexity you add into your research question, the lower the accuracy and the longer the time that you have to calibrate and fine-tune the model. Okay, so this also comes with experience, and you just brainstorm with your colleagues and maybe trial and error, try and make a model with 20 categories. And the next time, you're going to be more cognizant of your time and your effort. So that's how machine learning works, and we will see in the afternoon session with a hands-on experience and the script and everything. So where the field is heading, what's fancy, where the field is going, right? Machine learning and remote sensing. Right now, we are not there yet. We don't have a model that will do everything for us and we will just sit back and sip coffee and let the model run. Right now, the models are trying to distinguish between a cat and a dog running overnight, getting a lot of training and a lot of modeling to just distinguish a cat and a dog with 80% accuracy. I'm making this up, the numbers, but you get what I'm trying to say. Whereas the human brain, if we take 1,000 humans and we show them 1,000 pictures of a cat and a dog, what the accuracy is going to be? 100%? 99%? If it's a big cat? So the humans are way, way, way far ahead of the models we currently have, because we have a very well-trained, since day one, we were born, we are looking at images and, you know. But the newer development in the remote sensing and machine learning field is the pre-trained models. So they have what we call the foundation models. These models are already pre-trained, so you don't have to go and collect samples and maybe validate. You don't have to do that. They are already pre-trained. What does that mean? For example, this one here, they have collected globally 1 million samples on parking lots. So they know, the model knows how the parking lot looks like. And then you take the pre-trained model, you are not taking their samples. The samples are theirs. But you are taking the model and you say, okay, here's my Belém, my area of interest. Find me the parking lots. You already know how they look like. You are pre-trained, okay? That's how ChatGPT works. It knows phrases and words and paragraphs. And then you say, okay, write me something like this. And it already knows how to write it. It will write it for you. That's the pre-trained model, the foundation model, they call it. And there are a lot. It's very hard to keep up with the literature. Every day there is a new model. If you go on LinkedIn and Twitter, wherever, you will find a new and a new and a new all the time. Why? Because a lot of people are working day and night on the topic. New models, more models. For example, this thing here, this model here, the Atlas pre-train that I just found online, they have 30 terabytes of satellite images. They have 300 million samples, and they are producing 137 categories. That's impressive, huh? They fixed it forever for us. But my main argument is that whenever you see broad focus or a moving target, as we call it, it's not going to be accurate. It's never going to be accurate. The accuracy is going to be very, very low. The better models right now, today, as we speak, the better models are those that are very, very targeted. And what I mean by that, for example, here, this model is detecting only buildings, nothing else, only buildings. So if you take the result from the 100 labels from the previous model and compare it to that one here, this one is going to be more accurate because it's more focused. This one is about wildlife, cars, tree canopy. Always prefer to use the models that are more focused. They're going to be more accurate. That's a fact. Swimming pools, right? Only swimming pools. I don't want a model, I don't need a model that has 100 different categories. Some of them, the easiest ones, for example, the swimming pools are easy within the urban landscape and there's some water. It's always easy to find it, to make a model that finds it. Okay? Trees, urban canopy, urban trees. It's going to be way more accurate than using this model with 100. And there are so many of these. So another point that I'm trying to make is that depending on your project and what you want to do, if you decide to use one foundation model, pre-trained, you need to go and read through a little bit here, read a little bit here. They will report the accuracy. They're going to say that we trained this model in boreal forests, or we trained this model in tropical forests, or our results show that our model in tropical areas is 50% accurate, and in boreal areas it's 80% accurate. So then you make a decision. You say, no, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to find another one. There are so many. I'm going to find another one that was trained on tropical forests. So that's how you can navigate into this sea of new models. This here, for example, I just Googled and found models, pre-trained models, foundation models that are more relevant to ecologists. So this one, for example, is about birds. Distribution, modeling, remote sensing, and citizen science data. That's how they train it. If you spot a bird, you just go into an app and you say, I saw a bird here. And as you can see, the accuracy is 67. Water bird monitoring here, 67. It's not going to be 100. Huh? 67 is nice. It's okay because it's very, very challenging. Water birds only, it sounds challenging to me. This one here, yeah, that's from citizen science. Anyway, so always look at the accuracy and how they trained it and where this accuracy is higher, I mean geographically, right? Because if they give you a number like this, Is it for where? There are other water birds in the Amazon, other water birds in Michigan. So you need to go or send an email to the authors if they don't mention it, right? One number of accuracy for a model like that, it doesn't mean much. And there are also, that's a different kind of approach. There are also global data sets with training data. You are not taking the model anymore, you are just taking the data set to train your own model. Just a heads up that there are also data sets like this out there. Another one here, Global Land Cover 1984 to 2010. 2 million training units spanning these 35 years. Okay? And here I have many other examples of models. Perhaps you can go in here, just explore a little bit what these models are, and maybe keep an eye or just subscribe to a news feed, how do you call that, to get a notification when new models are available here. These three links have pretty much all the new developments and the old. So if you go there, you're going to find hundreds of foundation models and benchmarks and all that. Okay? So, another final topic is language models and remote sensing. As you remember, the first graph, one tiny part of the deep learning world is the language models. Now they are trying to bring language models like ChatGPT and Claude into the remote sensing world. I'm skeptical. I don't like it that much. I'm going to tell you. There are a few dozens of them today. There is one that is called Spectral GPT. It's trained here and Sentinel and blah, 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 12 bands and 62 categories it can recognize. And you can just write text and say, find me the tennis court in my neighborhood. And it's going to find it for you. Remote sensing ChatGPT. Again, language model. You can find it on GitHub. And it looks like this. I don't know if you can see this clearly. But the user says that find me the edges or cultivated land. And the model will go through the image and find the cultivated land for you. I have some other better examples, remote sensing GPT, and here you can say, does this image have roundabout? And the model will say yes. So that's where the language models come into a discussion, a dialogue with remote sensing. Do we actually, they are fun. They are fun, interesting, and people who make those have fun. But for us now, we don't need it. Because it's always going to be like a tiny picture. We are not going to give it like a global image and say, find me the roundabouts globally. It's not going to work. But if you have a tiny image like this, I don't know, what's the point? The human brain can find the roundabout even more quickly than the language model. So, Chat, Earth, Net, I just found a bunch of them with a simple Google, Earth, GPT. More and more are coming into play. And the user just uses text instead of script or, you know, a tool. GeoChat, same thing. How many tennis courts are visible? And it says 10. But what's the point? I'm super skeptical. But I just wanted you to see that the field is going slowly into this direction. Not slowly, quite fast. So, any questions? This is the machine learning and remote sensing part of the lecture.
I was thinking about that another advantage of using like machine learning stuff is that we have some measure to report about accuracy, because in the other way we like classify something by ourselves and we just assume that we have like 100% of accuracy, but no one knows if we are right or not. Like reviewers doesn't check if you classify something in the correct way, and with machine learning methods, we can report something, some measure, to people see and think that, oh, okay, we have some error here or not. So it's another advantage.
Exactly, yes. The machine learning libraries and everything, they have a full suite of diagnostics. So you have the out-of-bug error, you're just setting part of your sample aside, and you are comparing with your output. There are all kinds of diagnostics and accuracy assessment methods. I'm not going to cover accuracy assessment today in the afternoon, but there are so many ways to do that. Even the old school traditional accuracy assessment validation was to go into the field and say, is this forest, and take a GPS and say, but nowadays we just randomly distribute a number of samples. The user goes there and just assigns a label based on the Google Earth higher resolution imagery, something that you are really certain that you see on the ground. And then you are comparing your output, the raster file that you take as an output from the model, you are comparing and you are measuring what we call the error matrix.
Thank you.
We have more questions? Mais perguntas? Okay.
And then, after we are done with machine learning, I'm going to go into the last section. We have 40 minutes, roughly, 35 minutes, to cover another advancement, another stream of research that integrates remote sensing with machine learning and, this time, cloud computing. Cloud computing is that when you don't have a physical computer present, and you are renting or you are using computers that are distributed throughout the world. So you have a task, and you say, run this for me. And these computers might be anywhere in the world. That's the concept of cloud computing. The most frequently used, the most famous, I would say, platform for remote sensing and cloud computing, when they come together, is Google Earth Engine. Have you ever heard of this platform, this tool? Have you ever used it? Dominic? So, Google Earth Engine is used for, I have a little video, but I can skip, huh? I don't need it. Anyways, nope. Yeah, I need to go back to my slides. Yeah. So, no, yes. Cloud computing, you can find it online or in the literature as supercomputing sometimes. It uses parallel computation. That's the architecture. That's how they made it conceptually work. And it connects also to the storage, because you need storage for all this data, and to the Google Drive environment. And basically you are using these computers here, this. Let me see if I can take back. Yes. So basically you are using these computers right here for your tasks, okay? And there's a lot of investment, right? A lot of money, because it's a huge, huge project. Like other projects by Google, like for example, Google Maps. It's everywhere, it has all the businesses, all the information. These are a lot of data. So a lot of data means a lot of money. And Google Earth Engine is getting used a lot by people, by researchers and everyone who wants to do something that is larger scale than a single neighborhood or a single city. And currently it's used for all kinds of applications, from ecology, environment, climate, you name it. Image processing, disasters, hydrology, everything that you can imagine can be done with the Google Earth Engine, okay? And right now is the largest repository of remote sensing data. It's the largest database that exists. We are talking about petabytes. It has quite a selection of models and tools and scripts, pretty much for everything. It has cloud computing and supercomputing capabilities, so you can run a global model if you want. And also it's a very large geospatial data science community. So they have a lot of forums and a lot of sessions and classes online, and whatever you can imagine. Yeah. 50 petabytes of data, more than 900 spatial data sets right now in the Google Earth Engine catalog. And those numbers obviously increase daily. Literally, you cannot keep up with new stuff that go in there. Hundreds scripts, and the users can create their projects and all of that. And this is the paper that introduced Earth Engine into the world. You can check it out if you're curious. This paper explains everything, and it was published only 10 years ago. So it's brand new, it's fresh. And then Earth Engine is free for non-commercial use, right? Like all these applications, Gmail, Google Maps, Google Earth, all of these are free. But that's another story. We can discuss over lunch. How free is free, right? And why they're putting all this investment all these billions of dollars to create this infrastructure and this platform and give it to you for free. Although it's not free anymore, it's not entirely free. If you're gonna do something more in terms of scale and processing, you have to pay. It was free a few years back. And then we have the Earth Engine catalog. As I told you, it's the largest repository of data. You can go there and literally find any data set that you want. It has become the norm. Everyone who is doing something in a large scale, obviously, right? Not small scale studies. Everything that is doing something global, something continental, they put it there. National sometimes. And now, Earth Engine has all the repository of Landsat, 50 years worth of data, the entire archive of Landsat, of MODIS, of Sentinel, even some planet imagery. For the tropics, the planet imagery is high resolution and it's free for the tropics. So they have the entire Landsat collection since the early 70s, 1972. It was the first Landsat. The entire Sentinel, and also some high resolution imagery available for free, but it's not continuous, it's not global, because these things are expensive and they don't want to open the archive for research. Even some SAR data you can find there, and some LiDAR, I'm pretty sure, yes, they have some LiDAR as well for free, okay? So you can find all this data in the Earth Engine catalog. And it has become the norm. Everyone who is producing something global, they need to put their data, they want to put their data in the Earth Engine catalog so that more and more people use it and see their work. So, for ecology, for example, there are so many options, so many global forest, global biomass data sets, so many climatic variables, ecoregions, whatever you might want to use, you will find something in the Earth Engine catalog. And there are also other alternatives. There's also this catalog browser that is separate. It's not run by Google. Actually, I know the guy who runs it. And it has 5,000 data sets in this. Here you can find it in this link. It's the Google Earth Community Catalog. That's how he named it. So you can go there and just download whatever you want, okay, for free. So, before I go there, where's Tiago? Tiago? I'm gonna share my screen because I'm gonna show you how easy it is to find a data set and use Earth Engine to load it up. Or I can do this later. I can do this later. I can continue with this. Oh no, I can do this later. So, the Earth Engine and this platform you see my screen? So, you go to the Earth Engine catalog. You type forest, for example, and you want to use this forest, this data set here from the JRC, from Europe. Global map of forest cover for 2020, version 3. You just go in, you scroll all the way down, and you click here, open in code editor. And this opens up the dataset for you in the Google Earth Engine interface. You just click run, and there you have it. It's that easy to load up something and inspect. It's easy, huh? Literally, you have hundreds and hundreds and thousands, maybe thousands of data sets available in those two. It's Java, but you don't have to worry about this anymore. Why? Claude. And I have an example, that's a good segue, actually. I have an example, I just go there and say, I'm going to do this. Give me the script. You literally take it, paste it here, click run, and you have it. Because if you want to download this, that's a different story. You have to write a script, create a bounding box, connect it to your Google Drive to get the result. But it's so easy now with ChatGPT and Claude. You don't have to be a programmer anymore. Yes? Exactly. Yes. Let's switch back to my presentation, because that's a good segue. You don't need a computer, a very powerful computer, to do this anymore. And that's also the only option if you want to do large-scale analysis. If you're going to do global or national for Brazil. It's the only option. If you're going to do something global with Landsat, it's never going to happen in a computer, in a local computer. Never. For example, this one is the most cited and the most the frequently used data set. That is the global forest chains, global data of forest chains from Hansen. 20 plus years of global forest chains they do. Okay? And they keep updating it. It's not only one snapshot. We did this analysis, this is the paper, and we are done. They keep doing it every year, every 2 years. The only way you can do this is using supercomputing. And if you look at every global paper that uses remote sensing, some machine learning, and do global stuff, if you go into the methods, you're going to see they're using Google Earth Engine. It's the golden standard for large scale. If you have a local area like Belém or a smaller area, it doesn't make sense to go into Google Earth Engine. Just do it locally on your laptop, your computer, right? If you have a small area, it doesn't make sense to go there. So the only thing I want you to keep is that it has become the golden standard for large-scale analysis of remote sensing. And there are so many different. These guys here, they did global lakes and rivers and whatever. They classified 3.4 million images. It's never going to happen on a computer. 2.4 petabytes of data. Only in Google Earth Engine. These guys here, they did global wetland. Again, Earth Engine, if you just look into the methods, they will say it's the golden standard, okay? And the platform itself is very easy to use. You go there, you click the data that you want to load, Landsat here. You get the Landsat. You click run here in the script, and you just have the Landsat ready for inspection. And you can even have, where is it? You have all these scripts that are available to run, including machine learning scripts. And you even have vegetation indices here. So you don't have to be a programmer anymore. So here's a demonstration. Ben, you asked that about the language and what kind of language they use. So I'm like, I need a Google Earth Engine script that computes NDVI over the city of Belém in Brazil using Landsat. That literally I did yesterday while Tiago was teaching. And boom, you have the script. I don't even read it anymore. I used to read it to understand what's going on, but not anymore. Just copy. You don't even have to have an account. That's why I have this. You don't have to have an account or like a ChatGPT Pro, anything, because you're asking for something very simple. The language models are great for scripts and code. They are designed for this. Way more than write me a poem or something more abstract. 30 seconds. I took the code, I pasted it here, run. 30 seconds. NDVI for Belém. And obviously you can go back and follow up and say, no, I want more. I want 20 kilometers buffer. I want a time series. You can just literally ask ChatGPT to write the code for you. Okay? But Google Earth Engine is not a cartography tool. It's not a tool to just make maps. It doesn't make sense to go there to make maps. Better export your results into QGIS, ArcGIS, and do it there. It's not a full web GIS yet. It doesn't have everything. Especially it doesn't have vectors, shape files. They're not working very well in Google Earth Engine. You can only upload your vector to clip or to have like to use as a mask. So it's not a full GIS yet. Also, it's not a web visualization tool. Many people just use it to load data and just inspect the data set and then they close it. You can do much more, the way I showed you. And also, it's not a data supermarket. So many people think that because they have all these 900 petabytes of data, we can just go there and start downloading data. They have a strict policy. right? There are some limitations. You cannot go there and say, okay, give me a global forest on my computer. It's not gonna work. Why? They put these limitations because there are thousands and thousands, maybe millions of users that they are using the resources. So they put like a barrier and say that every user can use this amount of processing. And then they have different tiers. If you pay a little bit more money and you go to tier 2 or tier 3, you can do a little bit more. For example, those guys that, those people that published the global papers, I'm pretty sure that they are in the 3rd tier, non-commercial again, but 3rd tier so they can run their scripts and get something meaningful. Okay, so there are limitations. It can be a data supermarket, but you cannot go there and say, give me global this and global that. And also, it's not Google Earth. Google Earth is another application that is only for visualization. The Earth engine is different, okay? Different application. Also, if you want to learn more, I told you, I mentioned five slides earlier that it's a very large community. If you want to learn more, there is so much stuff on YouTube, Google, GitHub, Stack Overflow, of course, ChatGPT and all the cousins of ChatGPT, and also Google Earth Engine tutorials by Google. So endless sources, resources to learn how to use it more efficiently. They have Google Earth Engine courses, if you have the time. Another platform here with free courses. And also this guy. This guy is the OG. This guy is a professor somewhere in the US, and he has the most visited channel with geospatial data science tutorials. And he's making his own libraries and stuff like that. So if you go to this channel and you want to see videos of Google Earth Engine, he has like 200 tutorials, okay, with Google Earth Engine only, because his channel has 900 videos, okay? And any questions about Google Earth Engine?
Why did you say that it's not interesting for small scale? Because you have to pay?
You have to pay and you have to write code and go there and do this there. When you don't need it, you can do it on your computer. And also you cannot publish your result in the engine catalog. They're not gonna approve it. They want global stuff or national stuff. They want something that is important to as many people as possible. So if you do like a local study in a local forest or a smaller scale, it's important to less people. So it's not gonna go into the catalog. If you're gonna do the analysis in the Google Earth Engine platform, you can do it. You can do it, but sometimes I find it easier to do it on my laptop, old school, and go to Earth Engine if I need some more computing to do this there. They have anything you can imagine. It's
Questions? No?
No, I did it. I did it already. Yeah. Yes, I am finished on time. Wow.
Okay, lunchtime now.
Thank you. Yes. No.
A tarde começa às 14, tá? A sessão institucional.
Like it? I hope it wasn't tiring for them. Accuracy, yeah.
I was going 6-7.
Ah.
6-7. I was hoping you would do that.